want to do what is loving and caring.
Of a spiritual life.
But
I think there's also a simplicity about a habit. If you take away the spiritual value of it, just saying this is a uniform, everyday kind of a situation, okay? And it
trendy is important to something, not in the sense that you belong
much more
to a
simple
society.
style, yes.
I think they saw us as
we
somebody
need
who
to
represented the church,
dress
represented
simply.
some kind of moral values, and when you no
I
longer
believe
wear that
that
habit, who
that
are you,
says
what are
something.
you, how are you acting?
Set Apart is a series about experiencing the habit as women religious. Brought to you by Sister Story, an organization aimed at broadening awareness of Catholic sisters, and sponsored by the Conrad Hilton Foundation. You're listening to the episode Special Treatment, featuring Sister Nancy Davis, who rides solo with the habit, is a sister of St. Joseph of Carondelet in St. Paul, Minnesota, and lives to make a difference in the community. She was born into a Catholic family and has been a sister for 62 years. In this episode, she discusses her role as a sister before and after she wore the habit.
And we have a governing body that we all are participating in. If you're thinking about the traditional 50 years ago community rules, you know, and a set horarium, set schedule, you have to wear something. I was traveling and there was a driver that had picked me up, and they told him I was a nun. And I was like this, and he just rolled his eyes. He didn't, because he was looking for him, but he wasn't Catholic, because that's all he knows about the nuns, is they wear these strange clothes. Today people expect nuns to be dressed in secular. Not until later we could get it was wool all the time until came out with what do you call it, material, lighter material. It's this 60s. Well, I think maybe the word enabler, because we're smaller in number now. You know, there were 1,300 of us, and now we're probably 200. So and most of us are older, you know, like I am. So we're not individually doing so much as we once did, but we have founded and we've encouraged and we've taught. So I think our history and our presence in the world enables other people. There are too many opportunities, well, young women for a community, that there's so many other places for them to do it. But we do have what we call consociates, who make promises but not vows, lay people, men, women, Catholic, not Catholic, who are really, I think, the future of our community. And I would recommend that to a lot of people. Live according to our spirit, according to their way of life. The habit that we wore came from our original sisters in 1651 in France. And at that time, it was the dress of widows. It was not a habit, it was just the dress of widows. And they wore it because in those days, young women, single women, could not go out in the street alone. So but a widow could. So they wore that, but it became locked in until the 1960s. So all those years they wore it, and it enabled the original sisters to go out and work in the cities, on the street, helping people. And they could do it. And they wore it so they would be inconspicuous. They wouldn't stand out. When we started, 1800s or so in the United States, It did just the opposite, stood out like a sore thumb. So it took its purpose became just opposite. It became something that you stood out. And in most cases, my experience over the years was it became a barrier between people and yourself. Because you were set aside, you know. It was very important first, you know, it would make you feel part of a community. And early on, I never experienced it as a deterrent, you know, as turning people off, although I did, but we weren't out about so much, so you didn't experience. You were usually in Catholic schools or parishes, so you didn't have much contact with people who didn't know you as Catholic sisters. But then over the years, as we expanded our works and were out more, people always, quote, quote, respected you, you know, singled you out. But you weren't even human to many people, you're just off somebody. So I experienced all of that over the years. When we first got it, we were quite young, and it made you feel pretty, you know, special, which of course wasn't the point. And then later, when I'd be in, like, one of my first years in graduate school, or it wasn't even graduate school yet, it was workshops. So I was with people who would never even talked to a nun before. Therefore, the habit, I experienced it as setting me apart, which I didn't like. I'll give you an example. It's not the habit as much, because that was after I didn't wear it. I visited the elderly in a residence, and I visited for maybe 2 years this one woman. I mean, this is typical, it's not, for 2 years. And I never said I was there as a sister, I just came to visit. And this Italian woman, very Catholic, found out I was a sister. Somebody told her, and I didn't ever deny it. I just didn't use it because I wasn't there for a religious purpose. I was there just to visit. And she said, "Now what am I going to do with you?" She didn't know what to do with me because I was a sister, yet I'd been visiting her for 2 years. No problem. So that's a story that typifies what the switch was. There are many Catholics who criticize us terribly for getting rid of the habit. And there was exactly the reasons why it was good to get rid of it. This is like the woman, what do I do with you, you know? You're not going to be respected, you're not going to be da-da-da-da. Because before, Catholics, not non-Catholic, Catholic would have, in a sense, treat you as if you're on a pedestal. What good are you up on a pedestal, you know, if you can't be where you're trying to be? So, but Catholics didn't know, they wanted to know they were dealing with a sister because they acted differently. I'll tell you another story. Do you know the Shriners? The Shriners, they're a Masonic group. They always have a circus. And they wear big fezzes. I mean, it's a men's group. They have a circus that they come to town. My dad was a Mason, so he had tickets, and this was just a little after we got out of the habit. And there were sisters living with me who had never in their life been to a circus, so I took them to a circus. We were up in the balcony, you know, and there was a family right in front of us, kids, you know, and way down on the floor, you know, prime seats and special treatment, were about 5 nuns, and the Masons with the fuse were taking very special care of them. And the kids weren't watching the circus, they were watching the other circus, the nuns. I mean, it was so foreign to them. They were as strange as the acts in the circus. We were hysterical because we were sitting right behind them and they didn't know we were nuns. That tells you something. They were just a handful, but they were down getting special treat. And the kids spent more time watching them than they did the circus. Which, for me, says the whole story. Funny things happen. Trying to get used to it, but I wouldn't call it, it's just funny things happen.
Can you tell?
Well, I mean, just, getting used to short skirts, and we had to go through a stage where we wore a veil for a while with what they call it adapted habit, learning how to buy clothes again. That was one good thing about habit, you knew what you're going to wear every day. So yeah, and it's hard. We still try to live out simplicity of life, and to live under that, not having much money, because you're a sister, you were quote more holy, and you miss just being able to get and put on with that. But that's facetious. That's not. So no, I would never ever want to go back. That's certainly a simple way of life. But it's when you think about a habit, it's kind of like you're in a container, and the container is more important than what's inside of it. That could be true of ordinary clothes too. You look at somebody and they have ragged clothes and so on, and you have a stereotype that they're less than you are. I mean, see, if you take what I said the way it began, it was meant to make you feel, look like you're part of what's going on. It's an everyday nothing. But it over time, it became to be somebody special. And it might be hooked up with poverty, mainly because it's simple. But actually, the cost of a habit was very, very expensive because it was made of very fine wool. So, in itself, it wasn't as cheap as you might think. So it could be interpreted that way, but it wasn't. It was minor. It would be minor, I think. Before I entered it, and still now, it's not the most important thing in my life, for sure. You have to wear something.
Thank you for listening to Set Apart, a series about experiencing the habit as woman religious, brought to you by Sister Story. Special thanks to the Conrad Hilton Foundation for their support. Interviews were conducted by Brianna Berner, Tran Nugent, and Alexa White. Music is from Free Music Archive and the record label American Residue Records. This series has been produced by me, Lily Jacobson, with additional support and guidance provided by Garrett Tiedemann and Alicia Beyer. Please connect with us at sisterstory.org. Check out our video content on Vimeo and YouTube. Like us on Facebook and follow Sister Story on Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram. Planning any events for National Catholic Sisters Week, March 8th through 14th? Connect with us at nationalcatholicsistersweek.org and submit your events for post and promotion. We look forward to hearing from you soon.